All right, next up is Consolidation is the New Black. What's next in the mobile game industry? We have Shawn BONHAM. He's a Senior Managing Director for Upsite in Asia. And John, why don't you take it away?
Let's do it. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So Consolidation is the new black. Shawn BONHAM, as you know, and I'm based in Tokyo, Japan, manage operations and strategy for Upsite. So what does consolidation is the new black really mean? Well, black is simple, black is flexible. It works in numerous situations with minimal tweaking and change. And this really leads into the theme of today's talk, which is consolidation and simplification in the gaming industry, both in the publisher and developer communities, but also in the middleware ecosystem as well. So, we're moving into a period of increased consolidation right now in the gaming industry. And as we move into this phase, it's really important to identify the key components of the business that can scale. Just sort of like, that perfect black jacket or the black dress that you can wear clubbing or you can wear to a wedding. Figure out what your core components of your tech stack are, what the core components of your business is, and then you can really scale them as you build out your business across multiple dev teams or as you work as a single developer with multiple publishers. So the theme for this topic also came with many of the hundreds of developers that we work with at Upsite worldwide, as they themselves are sort of struggling to figure out how to scale their business across many regions and across many development teams. So quick question, how many of you have heard of the company Upsite before? Okay. How about Playhaven or Contagion? So a few more people, great. So this may be breaking news, but December of last year, Playhaven and Contagion combined together. And then at GDC in March of this year, we announced the birth of Upsite, which is the combination of the staff and the technologies of both of the companies. So the goal of this was really to create a really comprehensive solution where we can both understand users deeply through Contagion's analytics, but then reach out to them in a targeted way through Playhaven's sort of push marketing, as well as in-app marketing campaigns. So I'm not going to really talk too much about this in detail, but I want to give you an example of this is how sort of we ourselves are also working on consolidation as a company as well. So back to the story of consolidation. But before I do, I want to share kind of an interesting story about Upsite with you. So I think maybe some of you are working on international marketing campaigns yourselves. So when we announced the combination of Playhaven and Contagion to Upsite, our marketing team had the great idea of saying, we'll say these two companies are just like peanut butter and chocolate. They go great together, right? Well, I think peanut butter and chocolate are great, but we quickly realized outside of the US, no one else thinks that. So I'd recommend, so we had to sort of think about how we're going to retweak this, but it's just something to keep in mind as you think about your international marketing campaigns. So 2014. I think this is really going to be a year where we see M&A definitely accelerate a lot as a continuing trend. So at the end of 2013, I'm sure as a lot of you know, we saw a combination of Gung Ho and SoftBank pick up 51% stake in Supercell. Earlier this year, obviously Zynga bought Natural Motion, Glue, Play First, Kabam, Phoenix Age. So there's a lot of partnering going on right now. In the middleware space as well, obviously, we just talked about Playhaven and Contagion combining to form Upsite, but Unity has sort of been on a spending spree also, picking up EveryPlay, which is a company specializing in instant replays and game sharing, as well as game analytics. So these are a few larger examples, but these are also part of a much larger trend in the industry as well. So according to Digit Capital Research, M&A in the gaming space was up 29% in 2013 to a record $5.6 billion. And of that $5.6 billion, the mobile gaming specifically took up almost 70%. The average deal size also increased around 23% year over year to $63.8 million, and that's a trend which is expected to continue in 2014. So why is there so much consolidation happening? So I think it's really expressed well from a quote from Romance of the Three Kingdoms. So some of you who read Chinese might recognize this if you're fans of the Sangwo Yanyi. So it goes something like 合久必分，分久必合. So basically what that says is anything which is divided for too long, or anything which is together for too long, has to divide. Anything which is divided for too long has to come back together again. So this is the opening line from Romance of the Three Kingdoms, and sort of talks about politics in ancient China. But I think it equally applies to sort of the tech space that we're in right now. Especially in mobile, as new business models, new devices, new technologies come out, established companies are really not able to be agile enough to deal with them, and so you see this plethora of sort of startup companies burst out. But after a while, a few years, especially 2014, as we are now, the free-to-play business model, marketing strategies are better understood. And so larger companies are actually better able to realize economies of scale in their game development and also do more comprehensive marketing spends to push their games over the top. So I think we're beginning to see things come back together again. So digging down a little bit deeper into why sort of this consolidation is happening on the publisher and developer side, obviously competition for growth is intensifying. It's becoming very difficult for individual indie developers to sort of break above the crowd on the Apple or Google Play stores without working with publishers, and sometimes multiple publishers, from multiple regions. So from the publisher side, obviously they're working with more and more developers, and in order to guarantee their revenue stream, they're thinking a little bit more seriously about actually purchasing some of these developers and creating their own portfolio. So on the side of larger developers as well, like say the Glues or Kabams or Zyngas of the world, so now they're looking to sort of diversify revenue streams. So I think any investment portfolio manager will tell you, having just one stock, no matter how well it performs, is not a great diversification strategy. So we're seeing more and more games making hundreds of millions or billions of dollars a year. However, what we're also seeing in the mobile space is that sequels don't really sell, especially in free-to-play. So when you play a free-to-play game, obviously, the user feels that they've invested money in this game over time. And so going to the sequel is not simply spending another $50 and buying the sequel. It's actually starting from scratch again and having to reinvest all of this money. So if sequels are not going to sell, but we have a single IP generating 90% of our company's value, that's sort of a recipe for trouble. And so I think you're seeing a lot of companies, especially in the Supercell and Gung Ho, try and diversify their portfolio and business streams to create a more stable cash flow for the company. So next, we'll look a little bit at diversification and consolidation in the middleware space. So obviously, I think it goes without saying, freemium is a winning business model. It's already won. So in the US, around 93+% of games use freemium business model, and of those 93%, over 80% use virtual currency as their main driver of in-app purchases. In the APAC region, the proportion of top grossing games that use freemium is closer to 100%. So what does this mean for middleware? Well, obviously, traditionally, you need middleware to develop the game. But now more and more, you also need to use middleware every single day just to manage the game, to look at your KPIs, to tweak those KPIs, to constantly engage with your users via in-app push notifications, in-app marketing, new events for the game. So the number of middleware, or the tech stack to actually operate effectively a freemium game is becoming more and more complicated. So right now, this is a list of all of sort of the middleware data solutions currently available in the IT space. So they're not all for gaming, but even if we just look at the gaming ones, there's still hundreds of marketing platforms, analytics platforms, push platforms available. And trying to put together all of these pieces is a daunting task for most developers. So even if we break things down a little bit to the gaming space, I think any of you here will see probably half a dozen of services which you currently use. So having around 5 or 6 or maybe even more SDKs is possibly viable if you're a small developer and you're happy with combining all of the pipes between these two systems yourselves, managing SDK updates and bug fixes. But going back to the trend of consolidation, this becomes a real problem. If you're a developer working with 5 or 6 publishers globally, and you need to explain to them, how your complicated 6 or 7 SDK tech stack works. Or if you're a developer with multiple development studios and a single central tech team, you can imagine the difficulty in trying to piece all of these things together. So we'd really like to see a lot more consolidation and simplification in the middleware space. And I think from a developer's perspective, really looking deeply at your tech stack and figuring out how you can simplify it is really going to be a key to success. So in the case of Upsite, we call this sort of complete path from data analysis to user segmentation to finally reaching out to those different user segments, via push or in-app marketing, actionable analytics. So this is an example of the single unified data path that we use. But regardless of what middleware you decide to use, being able to intelligently think about how you can minimize the number of middleware pieces and make all of those pieces really work effectively together so you can better understand your user base is going to be a huge win. More specifically, this idea of actionable analytics is really going to make your decision-making process be much more efficient. So right now, you may have certain middleware for marketing, and you're looking at LTV for different user channels. You might have another LTV for your in-game metrics, so you're looking at what your tutorial completion rate is, how fast people are leveling up, what content is popular. You may have another middleware for your push campaigns, trying to figure out how effective each of those pushes are. But they probably don't really talk together very well. Maybe you have to, as you can see, go through various dashboards, various websites, download Excel files, re-upload them somewhere else. But imagine if all of these pieces could talk to each other. So if you could look at how the effect of a push campaign is resulting in people buying a certain item, and how is that purchasing of a certain item then affecting how fast people level up through the game and retention rates, as another example. So you can really see how this sort of holistic view is really going to improve your efficiency. And of course, content creation as well. We're moving into a period of where mid-core games are becoming much more popular, and content creation is not cheap. Even creating detailed 3D models, isn't particularly cheap. And you need to really think about who is the user base that I'm targeting with this content creation? Who is this new avatar clothing set really going to appeal to? Who is this new weapon going to be for? And understand that before you actually put in the work order to create it. So a comprehensive tech stack, an analytics, marketing, push platform is going to really allow you to do that. And finally, the user experience becomes more personal. And what we mean by that is that the user is going to feel that you actually understand them well. So as an example, if you can understand from your analytics set that a certain user or certain user group even, cohort in Thailand, they don't buy many power-ups, they don't buy a lot of in-game weapons, but they always buy the latest avatar clothing. So when you have a new version of clothing come out, create a segment of those users, send them a push notification, or send them a special offer for 50% off. Especially if they see that they got that offer and their friends didn't, they'll feel that you actually understand them as a user, and they'll feel much more loyal to your game, and the retention rate as well as monetization will most likely go up. So, what's next? Obviously, it's a fast-moving industry. No one really has a crystal ball, but I think definitely internationalization of games, meaning that from all regions, large developers and small developers alike are going to try and figure out how they can either partner with publishers or through M&A break into new territories. Also, I think wearable is, of course, going to become an interesting thing, and I think next year we may all be sitting here listening to a number of talks about new business models and new technologies for wearable games. But, regardless of whether you're trying to break into new markets or you're trying to understand or break into new technologies, I think you're really going to be served well by having that sort of consolidated, simplified tech stack. Because at the end of the day, knowing your metrics and understanding your users, which is going to allow you to quickly iterate. It's going to allow you to understand what is effective, see the results of that, and then pump that back into your knowledge state. So by doing that, you can iterate until you're finally at the top of the charts. So thanks.